National parks are meant to be places of beauty and adventure, but for some, they became the backdrop to unimaginable tragedy. From fatal wildlife encounters to mysterious disappearances, these stories will leave you shaken. Join us as we explore the darkest moments in the wild. This is 2 hours of most tragic deaths at national parks. Back in 2014, it was a beautiful evening at the Skukuza golf course, situated within the expanse of Kruger National Park. Jacques van der Sant, a 29-year-old with a deep-seated love for the outdoors, had returned to the park where he spent his early years, visiting his parents who worked there. As Jacques and a friend took to the golf course, their laughter echoed across the verdant expanse. Jacques was no stranger to adventure. Growing up within the beauty of Kruger National Park, he developed a profound appreciation for nature's wonders. His parents, Schalk and Laretha van der Sant, had dedicated their lives to preserving the park, instilling in Jacques a reverence for the wilderness surrounding him. Jacques and his friend kept playing golf until it was time to retrieve some golf balls in Lake Panic to continue their game. Although there were warnings, Jacques and his friend became curious about how many golf balls they could retrieve in the lake. Ignoring the warnings against swimming in the park's dams and rivers, he waded into the shallows, his friend following suit. Perhaps the nostalgia of his youth or the moment's thrill compelled him to venture into the water, heedless of the lurking dangers beneath the surface. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Jacques, a predator lurked in the depths of Lake Panic. Crocodiles, emerging from their winter hibernation, hungered for their first meal in months. With instinctual precision, one of these ancient reptiles, measuring nearly 4 meters in length, silently stalked its unsuspecting prey, its predatory gaze fixed upon Jacques as he reached into the water to retrieve golf balls. In an instant, the peacefulness of the evening shattered as the crocodile surged forward, its mighty jaws closing around Jacques' chest with bone-crushing force. The force of the attack was swift and merciless, dragging Jacques beneath the surface in a flurry of thrashing water. Paralyzed with shock, his friend could only watch in horror as Jacques disappeared beneath the murky depths. The night air was rent with the frantic cries of Jacques' companion, the sound echoing through the stillness of the park. Aligned with the unfolding tragedy, rangers sprang into action, their searchlights piercing the darkness as they combed the waters for any sign of Jacques. They scoured the depths for hours, their hearts heavy with dread as the minutes ticked. Finally, a glimmer of hope emerged, the silhouette of the crocodile, its victim trapped in its lethal embrace. With determination, the rangers aimed, their rifles echoing as they sought to free Jacques from the jaws of death. As the creature's lifeless body surfaced, the full extent of the tragedy became apparent. Once full of life and vitality, Jacques van der Sant had become another victim of nature's unforgiving wrath. His body was found without any signs of mutilation, except for the teeth marks that were present on his front and back. His untimely death shocked the tight-knit community of Kruger National Park, leaving behind sorrow and grief within his family and friends. In the aftermath of the terrifying incident, speculation ran rampant as to what had led to Jacques' demise. Some pointed to the reckless disregard for park regulations, citing the ban on swimming in the dams and rivers as a clear indication of the dangers hidden beneath the surface. Others questioned the efficacy of park management, raising concerns about predatory animals near recreational areas. What if Jacques had heeded the warnings against swimming in the park's dams and rivers, choosing to enjoy the golf course from a safe distance instead? A tale of greed, sorrow, and retribution unraveled in the sprawling, majestic landscape of Kruger National Park, where the vast African savanna rolls out like an unending tapestry under the expansive sky. Amidst the diverse tapestry of wildlife and the untouched natural beauty, human desires clashed with the brutal realities of nature, setting the stage for a poignant drama that echoed the timeless struggles of life and survival. It began with a man whose name has since faded into obscurity. He was a suspected rhino poacher, driven by the promise of profit and the temptation of easy riches. His life before Kruger National Park was shadowy, shrouded in mystery and speculation. Some whispered of a troubled past, others of a desperate present, but the truth remained elusive. With him were 4 accomplices, their faces obscured by the darkness of the night as they ventured into the heart of the wilderness. Their aim? To hunt the majestic rhinoceros, a creature whose very existence was threatened by the insatiable demand for its horn. Despite poaching being illegal as rhinos are now critically endangered, people still wanted to hunt them for its high price, ranging from $27,000 a pound to $7,000 an ounce. It's $400 more expensive than gold. No wonder these poachers wanted to get deficient rhino horns. Armed with weapons and fueled by greed, they stalked their prey with a ruthless determination, heedless of the consequences that awaited them. But nature, with its sense of justice, had other plans. As they moved deeper into the park, their footsteps echoing in the night, fate intervened in the form of an elephant, a towering animal whose rage knew no bounds. With a suddenness that caught them off guard, the massive creature charged, its tusks gleaming in the moonlight as it unleashed its anger upon the interlopers who dared to trespass upon its territory. In the chaos that ensued, the suspected poacher met his demise, his life snuffed out in an instant by the brute force of nature's wrath. His companions, gripped by fear and panic, fled into the darkness, leaving behind the lifeless body of their fallen comrade. But nature's revenge was not yet complete. In the days that followed, a search party searched the wilderness for the missing man, their efforts hampered by the park's vastness and their quarry's elusive nature. Eventually, their perseverance was rewarded as they stumbled upon a gruesome scene that bore witness to nature's brutal efficiency. Amidst the undergrowth, they discovered the remains of the suspected poacher, picked clean by a pride of lions whose hunger knew no bounds. All that remained were a human skull and a pair of pants. As news of the tragedy spread, the park's managing executive, Glenn Phillips, offered his condolences to the family of the deceased, lamenting the senseless loss of life that had occurred. But even as he spoke, the wheels of justice were already in motion, as 3 of the suspected poacher's accomplices were apprehended and brought to justice. For them, as for their fallen comrade, the price of their crimes would be paid in full. But amidst the tragedy, lots of questions lingered, including, what drove these men to risk their lives in pursuit of rhino horn? And perhaps most chilling of all, what other horrors lay hidden in the depths of Kruger National Park, waiting to be revealed? What if their greed had not closed their eyes to the dangers that lurked in the shadows? What if they had heeded the warnings and respected the sanctity of the park? And what if, in the end, nature's retribution was a warning to us all? Falk was a family man with a wife and 2 young sons, working for the Exum Mountain Guides, an organization that leads groups to the summit of Grand Teton. For over 12 years, Gary dedicated himself to his job and was known to spend summers in the park's Jackson Hole and winters in the San Juan Mountains of southwest Colorado, guiding other explorers as a part-time job for another organization named Mountain Trip. On July 23, 2016, Gary went on a routine climb to the summit with a group of students from a program called City Kids. During the upward journey, they encountered no issues, successfully reaching the summit as planned. But just as they began their descent down the mountain, something happened. According to reports, the downward journey required that each person use a friction descending device known as an ATC. However, Gary realized that he had no ATC to himself due to a last-minute rearrangement of climbing teams from his company. Instead of seeking assistance from his company, Gary chose a more risky approach to solve a problem. He planned to use a belay rope to recover a dropped ATC device that a chaperone had lost. Unfortunately, when the chaperone rappelled down to retrieve the ATC, both the device and the rope became stuck in a crevice during their ascent to the summit. Despite the setback, Gary remained determined to solve the problem himself. He attempted to dislodge the jammed rope and ATC by flipping them within the crevice. Tragically, during this attempt, Gary suddenly fell a harrowing 2,400 feet to the unforgiving rock face below. The group he was with then contacted Teton Interagency Dispatch to report his fall, while still shocked and devastated by the incident. Immediately, park rangers launched a reconnaissance flight with a helicopter to assess the scene. 2 rangers then rappelled down and hiked to reach Gary's location. Upon their arrival at the place where Gary fell, they determined that he was already deceased and needed no medical attention, then began arrangements to recover his body, and they eventually used a helicopter long line to do so. Meanwhile, another Exum guide helped Gary's clients down the mountain to safety. It's believed that while Gary was attempting to free the stuck equipment, he leaned out from the rock face, putting tension on his self-belay tether, known as a lanyard, which was securely anchored to his rappel rope. Unfortunately, the tubular webbing which Gary had tied into a loop with a water knot to tether himself to the anchor came untied, resulting in his tragic fall. This theory was supported by shreds of evidence obtained by the climbing rangers who retrieved Gary's body. They had found the webbing still attached to Gary's harness with a hitch knot, but its two ends were not tied together as they needed to form a tether. In the wake of Gary's death, Wyoming's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched an investigation into the safety practices of Exum mountain guides. While OSHA determined the company wasn't directly responsible for Gary's death as he used his personal gear, they did identify violations of safety regulations. Specifically, OSHA cited Exum mountain guides for failing to ensure the adequacy and proper maintenance of employee-provided safety equipment and maintain a written plan to limit guides' exposure to bloodborne pathogens during first aid procedures. As a consequence of these violations, OSHA imposed a $7,350 fine and mandated compliance with the aforementioned safety regulations. Gary was laid to rest days after the coroner officially certified that he was deceased. A GoFundMe campaign was later established to support his wife and children, raising nearly $200,000 to help them cater to their needs. Keweenaw Mountain is one of the many spots in Grand Teton National Park where many hiking enthusiasts typically visit. Among those drawn to its challenge were Tyler Strandberg, Catherine Nix, and Rebecca Anderson, three friends with a shared love for hiking and outdoor sports activities. On August 22, 2015, they attempted the hike of this 12,300-foot natural structure, known to be the sixth tallest peak in the Teton Range. According to reports, the trio were not novices to climbing and had tackled several other mountain areas in the past. When they began their hike via Keweenaw's east face without using ropes, they likely felt confident and untroubled about potential incidents. It was also known that the area they chose to climb was rated a 4.0 on the scale of difficulty. This rating indicates that, while good route-finding skills, mountaineering experience, and caution are necessary, the area is not considered highly technical by the park authorities. However, as the trio climbed the mountain, they lost sight of the official trail, a common issue for many who had previously taken this route. They soon found themselves far off course in a much more technical and dangerous area. As they attempted to navigate back to the correct trail, the unexpected happened. Tyler and Catherine slipped off a ledge and plummeted 200 feet. Rebecca, left behind in a confused and panicked state, was also unable to continue her journey either up or down because she was stuck on her own precarious ledge. After a while, she then took the initiative to contact the emergency dispatch center using her cell phone, which she still had with her. She informed them of the incident, explaining how she had tried calling out to her friends but received no response, which led her to fear that the worst had happened. Following the report, 3 rangers were dispatched via short haul to the location where Tyler and Catherine were believed to have fallen. Upon arrival, they discovered that the worst had indeed happened, as Rebecca had feared. Tyler and Catherine were found unresponsive, lying on the hard rock with their bodies severely mangled up. It was evident that they had lost their lives upon impact. After consulting with the park medical director, the rangers pronounced them dead at the scene. With nothing more that could be done for Tyler and Catherine, the rangers shifted their focus to rescuing Rebecca, who was still trapped on a ledge. 2 of the 3 rangers who responded to the call climbed steep and technical terrain for about an hour to reach her at 11,300 feet. Once they reached Rebecca, they prepared her for evacuation, and she was eventually short-hauled with one of the rangers to safety. Meanwhile, the remaining ranger rappelled down to meet his colleague, where the bodies of Tyler and Catherine lay. Their bodies were later evacuated to the coroner's office and subsequently picked up by their loved ones. It was later revealed that climbing the mountain had been one of Catherine's bucket list items for the summer, before she planned to move to New York in September to pursue a doctorate in child psychology at Pace University. Tragically, this adventure turned out to be the last item she would attempt on that list, resulting in the loss of both her life and that of her friend Tyler. In mourning their loss, Catherine's family paid tribute to her in various ways. Her brother honored her memory by running in her place in the New York City Marathon just months after the accident. Additionally, a friend completed the 100-mile Leadville Trail Run, a race in which Catherine and Tyler had previously participated. On July 14, 2014, Mary Margaret Bilyeu joined a guided climbing party for a hike to the summit of the Grand Teton, which stands at an impressive 13,700 feet. The team was made up of Mary, her climbing partner, and a skilled guide from Jackson Hole Mountain Guides. They embarked on their journey in the early morning hours to ensure they had ample time to cover the required distance and reach their destination safely. Given that Mary and her partner were accompanied by a professional guide, it seemed unlikely that they would encounter any significant obstacles along the way. However, just a few hours into the hike, Mary experienced an unexpected accident. As she was negotiating a short section of the climb below the upper saddle, at an elevation of 13,116 feet, she lost her footing and fell off the trail, plummeting to the bottom of the saddle. The climbing party immediately contacted the dispatch center for help, and climbing rangers who were on a routine patrol near the lower saddle moved to respond to their SOS. Despite their proximity and quick response, it was unfortunately too late to save Mary. When the rangers arrived at the location, they found Mary unresponsive, and every attempt to revive her failed. Despite wearing a helmet during the climb, it did nothing to protect her from the impact of falling from such a steep height. With no other options, the rangers pronounced her dead after consulting with the park's medical director. She was then evacuated by helicopter to the coroner's office for official confirmation of her demise. Meanwhile, other staff members from Jackson Hole Mountain Guides who responded to the scene escorted Mary's climbing partner down from the upper saddle to the lower saddle and eventually to a trailhead on the valley floor. Mary's death was shocking for one major reason. Earlier that year, she had successfully climbed to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa. This climb required her to cover a distance of almost 20,000 feet, a feat that many who attempt it do not manage to complete. It was evident that Mary was an experienced climber who knew her craft well and should have had no trouble navigating the Grand Teton. When news of Mary's demise reached her family and friends, they were shocked and devastated, given their awareness of her climbing skills. Her brother John Conley expressed their disbelief, stating that it was unimaginable that this could happen. He also described his sister as a very advanced climber and an all-around fitness buff. Away from climbing, Mary was a devoted and loving daughter, wife, mother, and sister. She was also actively involved in the family's Santa Fe Tag Agency in Edmond, and she participated in various charitable activities. To her friends, Mary was dependable, always showing up to help whenever they were in a bind, regardless of any discomfort it might cause her. She was eventually laid to rest on the 22nd of July at an interment ceremony attended by her friends and family. Potter and Graham Hunt spent the afternoon of May 16, 2015, clearing trees and brush from Potter's recently bought property. The day had been rainy and cool, but as the skies cleared and the light dwindled, the two adventurers decided to head toward Yosemite National Park for a jump off Taft Point, a 500-foot promontory that overlooks some of Yosemite's most famous landmarks. The call of the wild, the call of adventure, was almost inescapable for the two men. Yosemite National Park was the background and reason for many of their adrenaline-filled experiences. The men knew that what they were about to do wasn't considered a go-to pastime activity for most people. But they weren't most people. They were base jumpers using their wingsuits and parachutes to dive off impressive cliffs from astonishing heights. At 43 years old, Dean Potter was one of the world's most experienced base jumpers and a legendary daredevil athlete. 29-year-old Graham Hunt was Potter's apprentice. But base jumping is illegal in all national parks. That's why they usually had to wait for dusk or dawn before attempting a jump. Otherwise, they could risk having their expensive gear confiscated, or even spending months in jail. Potter and Hunt arrived at Taft Point along with Jen Rapp, Potter's longtime girlfriend. Rapp was to act as a spotter and photographer for the adventurers. At about 7:25 that evening, the two men were zipped up into their suits, ready to jump. They'd noticed a slight breeze picking up, but Potter's vast experience told him it was nothing to worry about. Neither of them was concerned. They had made the jump plenty of times before, together or alone. They cherished and sought the unique feeling of the drop, the adrenaline, and the gentle caress of the air as their wingsuits inflated. They planned to fly right toward the valley. To do this, the men had to clear Lost Brother, a ridge that extended downward, ending in a vertical wall. The ridge had a notch, a V-shaped indentation that was familiar to both jumpers. Hunt usually went through the notch, but Potter preferred to go around the ridge to the left. Potter was the first to jump. Hunt followed. Rapp snapped pictures, but the men quickly fell out of frame before the lens caught them again, this time soaring. Hunt naturally passed Potter. His suit was made for speed, while Potter's was adapted for long flights. Dean Potter often tried to improve his tactics. In fact, he'd spent some time in Canada working on a new design meant to allow him to land without using a parachute. He also constantly advocated for base jumping. Potter thought the sport should be legal in national parks, which he believed provided a great number of naturally safe spots for jumping. But something unexpected happened that evening. As Jen Rapp took pictures, she could see Graham Hunt veer left. Hunt immediately changed his mind and veered back to the right. Meanwhile, Dean Potter headed toward the notch. They disappeared into the hole out of Rapp's line of sight. Then a noise. A second, duller, heavier noise followed. Rapp couldn't imagine the worst. She waited for a signal from the men, but nothing happened. Rapp left the park and met with Rebecca Haney, Hunt's girlfriend. Hayne was worried sick. When it became clear that something terrible might have happened, the two women contacted Mike Gauthier, Yosemite's chief of staff. Gauthier was the one to assemble a team from Yosemite Search and Rescue. If Potter and Hunt were still alive and injured, time was of the essence. The team searched for hours to no avail. It wasn't until the following morning, on May 17th, that Potter and Hunt were found, when a California state helicopter joined the search efforts. The pilots used Rapp's photos of the previous evening to pinpoint the likely location of the crash. Two rangers were then short-hauled onto the site. Dean Potter and Graham Hunt were dead. The bodies were recovered, and a memorial was set up on Taft Point. Feathers, a beer can, Tibetan prayer flags, and a photograph of Potter adorned the viewpoint when Rapp returned there, 3 days after the accident. The cause of the accident still remains a mystery, although theories abound. Some say Potter saw Hunt hit the wall and lost his focus, which caused his own crash. Others think Hunt's maneuvers and crash caused air disturbances, which carried Potter to his death. Potter had jumped with a smartphone strapped to his head, but the device was too damaged by the impact. The only one who knows the truth is Yosemite itself. Capitan, or the Chief, is Yosemite National Park's best-known landmark, a vertical rock formation looming 3,000 feet above the park. To some, El Capitan is one of Mother Nature's beautiful creations. To others, it's just some big rock. But there's also a special category of people, those who see El Capitan as a way of life, a place that feeds the soul. 42-year-old Tim Klein from Leona Valley, California, and 45-year-old Jason Wells from Boulder, Colorado, were part of this special category of people. They were immensely experienced climbers, having conquered numerous walls and peaks. Both Klein and Wells regarded El Capitan as a one-of-a-kind place. Wells even called the granite monolith his magic stone. On the early morning of June 2, 2018, Tim Klein and Jason Wells were already up and doing what they loved best, speed climbing the 10-pitch freeblast portion of El Capitan's Salate Wall. Their goal was straightforward: make an in-a-day ascent using a technique called short fixing. This wasn't the men's first rodeo. Klein and Wells had climbed El Cap about 70 times together, and they had nearly 200 El Capitan ascents between the two of them. The two men had almost legend status amidst the climbing community. They were known for always being joyful and, more importantly, swift and safe. They had been friends and climbing partners for decades, which enabled them to lap the monolith multiple times in the same weekend, or even twice in the same day. This time around, Klein and Wells were joined by a third climber, Kevin Prince. It was a typical busy Saturday on El Cap. Several teams of climbers were both ahead and behind Klein, Wells, and Prince. As the three men made their way up the Salate Wall, they encountered Jordan Cannon and his team. They quickly passed Cannon, motoring up the wall. When Cannon looked at the men, it seemed to him that Wells and Klein were simul-climbing. If his observation was correct, then Klein and Wells were tied into the same rope while moving at the same time. Cannon also noticed that Prince was solo climbing up a rope that Klein had secured to bolt anchors positioned above the half-dollar portion of the climb. It seemed to Cannon that the men moved quickly, short fixing without placing much protection. As Jason Wells and Tim Klein made their way through pitch 9 or 10, a moderately difficult portion of the climb, approaching Mammoth Terraces, luck and experience failed them. It was about 8:15 a.m. when Jordan Cannon, whom the men had passed earlier, heard a thud coming from above. When he looked up, Cannon saw Jason Wells fall about 196 feet before stopping briefly. Then Wells fell even farther and hit the wall. Almost instantly, Cannon heard Tim Klein screaming. Klein fell too. Their rope caught behind a block, suspending the men in the air for a very short moment. But then the rope was severed, dooming Wells and Klein. The men fell to their deaths about 1,000 feet to the ground. Authorities couldn't determine why the two experienced climbers fell. According to Cannon, it was also impossible to determine if they had gear between them due to the rope being severed a few feet above Klein's knot. Their accident thus became yet another Yosemite mystery. Both Tim Klein and Jason Wells are remembered fondly by those who knew them, and by those who were inspired by the duo's extraordinary performances. Klein was a beloved teacher at Palmdale High School, who earned Teacher of the Year twice. He leaves behind his wife and 2 young sons. Wells worked as an investment manager and is remembered for his immense love of climbing.
5th, 2021, 26-year-old Cassie Brown, an avid canyoneer and beloved guide for the Zion Adventure Company, went on a solo canyoneering trip in Zion National Park. In the past, she had often joined other local canyoneers in trying out different terrains. Other times, she had also gone with her mother, who was a fellow enthusiast. However, she chose to go alone on this particular day for unknown reasons. Given Cassie's love for the hobby and her known dedication to safety, her trip was expected to be just another normal one, filled with the thrill of exploration. However, when she stepped out that morning, none of her family could have imagined it would be the last time they would see her alive. As she made her way through the trip, Brown reached a canyon that many considered easy to navigate. Just as she descended off it, she faced a challenge she hadn't anticipated. Her rope, a trusted lifeline that had secured previous descents, unexpectedly got stuck on a rappel. She repeatedly tried to shake it free from the rope, but it refused to budge. At this point, she was at a crossroads of choice. She could either wait for people to find her or try to ascend the rope to her previous route. But since there was no guarantee anyone else would traverse the canyon that day, the prospect of spending a long night trapped halfway down seemed not to appeal to her. Brown then decided to take the bold option of ascending the rope. Regrettably, her choice proved to be ill-fated. While ascending the rope, it unexpectedly gave way at some point. This sudden release propelled her into a harrowing free fall of approximately 50 to 80 feet, ending with her body crashing mercilessly onto the unforgiving rocky terrain below. The impact instantly inflicted her with multiple severe injuries, including broken bones in different parts of her body. An hour after Brown's fall, another group of canyon explorers stumbled upon her abandoned climbing gear. To them, it clearly indicated that a hiker had run into some trouble somewhere within the canyon. Taking the initiative, a member of the party was sent back to inform Zion's search and rescue team, who immediately mobilized their resources and expertise to locate and aid Brown. As the search for Brown intensified, the search and rescue team took decisive measures to ensure her swift rescue, even though it was initially unclear where she had fallen. They temporarily closed off several surrounding hiking routes vital for accessing the canyon, such as the Narrows, Mystery, and Orderville canyons. Even popular stops like the Temple of Sinawava Shuttle Stop and Riverside Walk were also closed off during the search period. A rescue helicopter was also dispatched to further facilitate the search. However, the canyon's sheer steepness and narrow confines prevented it from reaching Brown's location. After a few hours, medical personnel finally managed to reach Brown, who was lying on the ground, barely alive. They began administering initial treatments and preparation for moving her out of the canyon into the hospital. But sadly, this was a futile effort. Within moments of their arrival, she passed away, succumbing to the injuries she had sustained after her fall. Brown's body was later recovered from the canyon on Sunday evening and taken to the morgue. An investigation was opened to determine the exact cause of the accident, although foul play was not suspected. Following her death, Brown received many tributes from friends and other canyoneers who frequented Zion National Park. One person said she always brought a valued and skilled perspective to the limestone slots of the Grand Canyon and was a masterful practitioner in the art of canyoning. Another person remarked that she was dedicated to service and sharing her knowledge and love of the outdoors. Tuesday, November 20th, 2022, a 33-year-old man and his 31-year-old wife, a married couple, embarked on a permitted 16-mile journey through the Narrows in Zion National Park. This hike typically involves wading through the chilly waters of the Virgin River as it winds its way through an expansive slot canyon. In this area, cell phone reception is virtually non-existent because of its distance from cell towers, and the solid rock and earth forming a canyon also absorb or weaken any signals that manage to penetrate through. While this might have seemed daunting to many, the couple definitely didn't feel this way about the hike. As planned, they quickly covered the miles in good time. However, as nightfall approached, their situation took a turn for the worse. Despite starting the hike with temperatures at a relatively comfortable 49 degrees, the weather unexpectedly plummeted to dangerously low levels. Shockingly, it continued to drop steadily, even plunging below the freezing point. The cold soon proved overwhelming for the couple as they made their way along the hiking trail. It was even worsened by their lack of proper protective gear to ward off the chill. Before long, they began exhibiting symptoms consistent with hypothermia. This condition occurs when the body's temperature drops below normal levels because it's losing heat faster than it can generate it. Sometime during the night, they decided to set up camp and wait until morning instead of pressing on with their hike. They chose a spot approximately 1.5 miles from the end of their intended route. If they had forged ahead just a little more, they would have been able to get help, as there were facilities at the end of the trail. However, they did not, and by morning, their condition had deteriorated further from the previous night. At this point, the woman seemed worse off than the man. Seeing his wife's condition, the man, who was also severely injured, summoned the last of his strength to continue the journey alone and seek help for his wife. Eventually, he encountered park visitors who swiftly came to his aid and notified the authorities. Over 20 search and rescue team members were promptly mobilized and rushed to the couple's stopping point. Upon their arrival, the search and rescue team discovered the man receiving assistance from fellow hikers. He was promptly transported to the Zion Emergency Operations Center for urgent medical treatment. Further along the trail, they located his wife near the Virgin River, where she lay unresponsive. Despite efforts to resuscitate her by one of the hikers, she did not respond. Tragically, it was soon confirmed that she had passed away. An investigation into the cause of the woman's death was initiated, although it was ultimately presumed to have been caused by the effects of hypothermia. To this date, the couple's names are still not known to the public, possibly due to privacy reasons. Landing Trail has been a beloved destination in Zion National Park since it opened to the public in the summer of 1926. Renowned for its awe-inspiring views, the trail draws in hundreds of thousands of hikers annually, all eager to tackle the challenge it presents. Even under ideal conditions, navigating the Angel's Landing Trail requires remarkable coordination. The ascent is long and steady, with an elevation gain of nearly 1,500 feet. As a hiker makes the climb, they may experience dehydration, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke as they experience more sun rays. There is also no water available on the entire route, making it compulsory for every climber to carry at least a quart or two of water if they are to survive the hike. The ultimate challenge comes when climbers reach the last half mile of the trek. At this point, they must continue hiking by holding on to the chains that run parallel to the trail, or else they risk falling into the orange sandstone. Despite the trail's reputation for its challenging terrain and potential risks, 45-year-old Tate Ryan Volino from Osprey, Florida, decided to hike up the trail like countless others before him. On March 3, 2017, he began the trek, which is approximately a 5.4-mile round trip on the eastern edge of Refrigerator Canyon. Rather than joining a group hike, which often provides a sense of security and assistance in times of trouble, Volino opted for a solo expedition. His decision to go solo suggests that he was an experienced hiker, although it was never confirmed. At some point during the climb, Volino fell off one of the higher points on the trail, plummeting straight down to his death. There was no one with him when it happened, so it was unclear what led to his fall. Shortly after, a couple of hikers in the vicinity discovered Volino lying sprawled out motionless on the rocky terrain. They quickly contacted Zion Park's authorities about the situation they had encountered. Thereafter, personnel were dispatched to secure the area and close the trail from other hikers while the park's search and rescue team recovered the body of Volino. The trail was reopened later that day after Volino's body had been taken away. An investigation carried out into Volino's untimely death revealed a high visibility of trauma on his body. This was consistent with injuries sustained from a high fall, although the exact height he fell from remained unknown. His death was later characterized as a tragic hiking accident, as reported by the park authorities. It also marked the 15th death on the Angel's Landing Trail and the first for that year. While he was alive, Volino was known as a prolific writer who once worked in the financial services sector. He wrote numerous golf-themed books and fictional works, including The Front Nine and Pull the Pin. Beyond his literary pursuits, he dedicated his time to volunteering with organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, demonstrating his commitment to serving his community. Additionally, he found solace and joy in kayaking whenever he could seize the opportunity. At the time of his tragic passing, he was survived by his loving wife and 2 sons, whose names were never disclosed.
Starting to peak as Joel Thomason stood at the threshold of his home, bathed in the warm glow of the rising daylight. His wife, Amanda, looked at him with a mixture of pride and concern as he slung a yellow and gray Kelty backpack onto his broad, strong shoulders. It was September 6, 2021, and Joel was embarking on a solo hike to Yosemite National Park, a place he had roamed since childhood. Joel, a 31-year-old Army Reserve from Denair, California, possessed a keen sense of adventure. He planned to traverse from Hetch Hetchy to Lake Eleanor, a remote reservoir nestled in the northwestern corner of the park. The date set for his return was September 9th, and the couple exchanged a seemingly routine farewell, unaware that destiny was about to weave an enigmatic tale. As an Army Reserve, Joel was meticulous in his planning. His backpack held the essentials: a sleeping bag, a red inflatable kayak, and a hammock. Standing at 5 at 10 inches and maintaining impeccable physical fitness, Joel was not just an experienced outdoorsman. He was a practiced hiker and canoeer. 2 college degrees adorned his intellect, making him not just physically capable but also intellectually sharp. The day began as any other routine expedition. Joel, with his backpack loaded and spirit high, ventured into the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir and water system, seeking the perfect spot for a serene canoe experience. Lake Eleanor, situated at an elevation of 4,650 feet, 1,417.32 meters, awaited him with its remote beauty and tranquility, known as a haven for kayaking enthusiasts. The initial part of the trek unfolded routinely. Joel encountered fellow hikers along the Hetch Hetchy Trail, exchanged greetings, and pressed on deeper into the wilderness. Yet as the hours passed, a mysterious twist awaited him. Inexplicably, he seemed to vanish into thin air. Days turned into an agonizing wait for Amanda. The planned 3-day hike stretched into 5 with no word from Joel. Fueled by concern and a growing sense of foreboding, Amanda took matters into her own hands. She reported the disappearance to the Yosemite National Park officers, triggering a chain of events that would uncover a mystery shrouded in the beauty of the park. Park rangers and officers rallied together, disseminating information and initiating a search for the missing adventurer. Urgent appeals echoed through the park, urging anyone with information to come forward. The expansive search involved at least 16 National Park Service search and rescue crew members, accompanied by a search dog. Even the Tuolumne County Search and Rescue joined the efforts, deploying their helicopter, kayaks, and boats. Days turned into weeks, and the search became a relentless pursuit through the park's varied landscapes. From wide-open spaces to cramped, murky crevices, every inch of the terrain was scrutinized. However, Joel Thomason remained elusive, as if swallowed by the very fabric of Yosemite. Even the search dogs, renowned for their tracking abilities, failed to pick up his scent. The disappearance of Joel, though perplexing, was not an isolated incident. Yosemite had witnessed a cluster of mysterious disappearances in recent years. Solo hikers like Fred Zalakar and James Youngblom vanished without a trace during the summer months. Richard Judd, 69 years old, hiking with a companion, was separated and disappeared between Low Merced Pass Lake and Red Peak Pass. Despite extensive search efforts, only a day pack was recovered, leaving rangers puzzled and the mystery unsolved. The pattern of disappearances raised concerns about the safety of venturing into Yosemite National Park, yet the allure of adventure and the thrill of uncertainty continued to captivate more and more adventurers. The captivating beauty of the landscape masked a mysterious undercurrent that seemed to draw individuals into the unknown. As the search for Joel persisted, the wilderness held its secrets close. The captivating allure of Yosemite remained undiminished, yet its enchantment now carried an air of mystery. The mystery of Joel Thomason's disappearance lingered amidst the towering trees, echoing through the canyons, leaving a void that even the majestic beauty of Yosemite could not fill. Up until the release of this video, no sign of Joel's body had been found. The enigma of his vanishing act persisted, casting a shadow over the landscape that had once been his playground. Yosemite, with its majestic peaks and sprawling wilderness, stood as a silent witness to a mystery that defied explanation. The early morning of July 25, 2021, marked the beginning of an adventure for Richard Judd, a 72-year-old man with a passion for hiking. Accompanied by his hiking partner, they embarked on a journey into the Yosemite backcountry, ready to explore the rugged beauty of the Sierra National Forest. Choosing to commence their hike at the Quartz Mountain Trailhead, a location situated about 23 miles south of Lower Merced Pass Lake, the duo parked their vehicle and prepared for the trek ahead. Despite his age, Richard was remarkably fit, often engaging in physically demanding activities like hiking and camping. His enthusiasm for these adventures was fueled by his love for the outdoors and the joy of sharing these experiences with friends. On that warm July morning, Richard donned his blue shirt and gray pants, loading his backpack with essentials for the hike. Standing at 5 feet, 11 inches, and weighing 150 pounds, he exuded a quiet strength as he set foot on the trail, ready to embrace the challenges that lay ahead. The pair camped near Lower Merced Pass Lake before embarking on a day hike toward Lower Ottaway Lake and Red Peak Pass. Lower Merced Pass Lake, situated approximately 15 miles, 24.14 kilometers, from Happy Isles, served as their starting point for the Mist Trail, leading to the iconic Half-Dome Cables. The journey from Lower Merced Pass Lake to Red Peak Pass spanned about 3.5 miles, 5.63 kilometers, and the duo relished the moments spent traversing the rugged terrain, engrossed in conversation. Somewhere between Lower Merced Pass Lake and Lower Ottaway Lake, the unexpected occurred. The two hikers lost sight of each other, unintentionally getting separated amidst the wilderness. Perhaps assuming that Richard had forged ahead, the hiking partner continued on the trail, half expecting to reunite at the journey's end. As he reached the trail's conclusion, anticipation turned into concern when Richard was nowhere to be found. Waiting patiently, the partner hoped Richard would emerge at any moment. However, as time slipped away, the realization set in. Richard Judd was missing, seemingly vanished amid the vast expanse of the Yosemite backcountry. With a sense of urgency, the hiking partner promptly reported Richard's disappearance to the Yosemite National Park Rangers, initiating a frantic search operation. Despite their best efforts, the search proved futile, leaving Richard's whereabouts shrouded in mystery. This baffling case of a missing hiker was not an isolated incident, as several others had been reported that month in Yosemite National Park wilderness areas. Yosemite National Park, renowned for its awe-inspiring landscapes, witnessed a disconcerting trend. In the period from 2014 to 2019, The Yosemite search and rescue personnel carried out an average of 240 missions annually. A 2020 analysis unveiled that Yosemite was ranked as the 14th most deadly national park, registering 28.01 deaths per 10 million visits. This calculation took into account both the number of deaths and visitor statistics. The case of Richard Judd added another layer to the haunting reality of hikers disappearing in the vast wilderness of Yosemite. His fate, whether alive or otherwise, remained unknown, casting a shadow over the efforts of authorities and lingering as an unsolved mystery. The wilderness that had once been a source of awe and adventure now bore witness to the enigma of a seasoned hiker who vanished without a trace.
Her journey began in the rugged wilderness of Alaska, where she was born in the 1980s to a loving family. As the only girl in the family, she was showered with affection and encouragement from her mother, Janet Adamson. From an early age, it was evident that Amy possessed a thirst for knowledge and a deep love for the outdoors. After receiving a sound education, culminating in a university degree, Amy embarked on a career path that seemed destined for success, a career in teaching. Her passion for education was evident in her approach to teaching. She was known for her ability to explain complex concepts in a way that resonated with her students, fostering a deeper understanding and appreciation for learning. Despite the expectations of her family and peers, Amy's heart yearned for something more. It was during her time as a teacher that she discovered her love for backpacking. While teaching provided fulfillment, Amy found true joy and purpose in exploring the great outdoors. Her decision to leave the confines of the classroom for the vast expanse of nature was met with surprise and skepticism from those around her. However, Amy remained steadfast in her conviction that her true calling lay beyond the four walls of a classroom. She saw backpacking not just as a personal passion, but as a means to advocate for the preservation of nature and to inspire others to embark on their adventures. In 2015, Amy leaped and embarked on a journey that would change her life forever. She set out to backpack across America, traversing mountains, forests, and valleys, all the while documenting her experiences and insights. Her adventures took her to remote wilderness areas, national parks, and iconic landmarks, each step fueling her passion for exploration and discovery. Among the many parks she frequented, Yellowstone National Park held a special place in Amy's heart. Its rugged beauty and untamed wilderness drew her in time and time again, and she often found herself lost in its vast expanses, her spirit soaring with each step. On a seemingly ordinary day in 2023, Amy got up early, took her bath, gathered her gear, and set out for Yellowstone National Park, as she had done countless times before. She was a regular at the park, so she made her way in easily, and that was the last time she was seen. Little did she know it would be her final journey into the wilderness she loved so dearly. Hours turned into days, and still there was no sign of Amy. Panic gripped her mother, Janet, as she waited anxiously for her daughter's return. As the hours stretched into the evening, Janet's concern turned to alarm. When Amy failed to return home, she knew something was wrong. Racing to the park, Janet discovered that her daughter had not been seen since entering the park earlier that day. The vast expanse of Yellowstone National Park stretched out before the search team, a rugged landscape teeming with untamed wilderness. Park staff and experienced guides had assembled, their mission clear: find Amy Adamson. With her knowledge of the park and her love for the outdoors, they held on to hope that she was simply lost or injured, awaiting rescue. They combed through the park, navigating dense forests, rocky terrain, and winding trails. Their efforts were tireless, fueled by the determination to bring Amy home safely. But as the sun began to set on the horizon, their search took a grim turn. It was on the Buttermilk Trail, west of the national park, that they stumbled upon the devastating truth. Amy's lifeless body lay on the ground, her form battered and mauled, a haunting sight that sent shockwaves through the search party. Before they could begin to process the grim reality before them, Janet Adamson, Amy's mother, was whisked away to the park office, shielded from the heartbreaking scene. As the news of Amy's death spread, Janet was overcome with grief. In a public statement shared on social media, she expressed the depths of her sorrow, mourning the loss of her beloved daughter. Yet amidst the anguish, Janet found solace in the knowledge that Amy had passed away doing what she loved, exploring the wonders of the natural world. Local officials later confirmed the cause of Amy's death: excessive blood loss from a bear mauling. It was a tragic reminder of the dangers that lurk within the wilderness, particularly in areas inhabited by large carnivorous mammals like grizzly bears. Shockwaves rippled through the community, sparking a renewed conversation about wildlife safety and the importance of proper deterrence. As investigations unfolded, authorities discovered evidence pointing to an encounter with a grizzly bear. Tracks found near Amy's body confirmed the presence of the formidable predator, shedding light on the events that led to her untimely demise. Experts weighed in, offering insights into the swift and brutal nature of bear attacks, painting a chilling picture of Amy's final moments. Amidst the outcry over the dangers posed by grizzly bears, efforts were made to capture the elusive predator responsible for Amy's death. Yet despite multiple attempts to trap and remove the bear from the area, it remained elusive, evading capture time and time again. The community remained on edge, grappling with the lingering threat lurking within their midst. Months later, the same grizzly bear resurfaced, this time venturing into a residential area in search of food. In a desperate bid to protect the community, officials were forced to take decisive action, resulting in the bear's death. Through genetic analysis and other identifying factors, authorities confirmed that the bear had indeed been involved in the fatal attack on Amy, closing the chapter on a tragic saga that had gripped the community. In the wake of Amy's tragic death, her legacy lived on. Her book, Walking Out, one teacher's reflections on walking out of the classroom to walk America, served as a testament to her adventurous spirit and unwavering passion for the outdoors. Though her journey was cut short, her impact on those she touched would endure, a reminder of the fragility and beauty of life in the wild. Hun Ro, a 70-year-old retiree, found himself grappling with the boredom and loneliness that often accompany retirement. With his children all grown and living their own lives, and none of them nearby to provide companionship, Hun Ro felt adrift in a sea of idle days. As he contemplated the idea of finding a menial job to fill his time, a friend intervened, urging him to reconsider. After all, Hun Ro had spent a lifetime working hard to provide for his family, and now it was time for him to enjoy the fruits of his labor. Indeed, Hun Ro's children had all been educated thanks to his sacrifices, and they ensured that their father lacked for nothing in his retirement. Despite the physical distance separating them, they made sure to support him financially, sending money to his bank account without fail. Yet despite their efforts to provide for him, Hun Ro couldn't shake the feeling of emptiness that lingered in his heart. It was during one of his visits to Yellowstone National Park, accompanied by his friend Charlie, that Hun Ro's outlook began to change. Charlie, ever the adventurous spirit, exposed him to the vibrant life and breathtaking beauty of the park, opening his eyes to a world of possibilities beyond the confines of his own home. The pair found solace and joy in the serene landscapes and colorful waters of Yellowstone, their bond growing stronger with each visit. Even when Charlie wasn't available to accompany him, Hun Ro found himself drawn back to the park, seeking refuge and rejuvenation amidst nature's splendor. For Hun Ro, Yellowstone became more than just a destination. It became a sanctuary, a place where he could escape the monotony of everyday life and rediscover the joy of living. Whether he was exploring the winding trails or simply sitting by the tranquil lake shores, Hun Ro found peace and contentment in the natural world around him. On a seemingly ordinary Saturday, Hun Ro found himself drawn once again to the allure of Yellowstone National Park. Despite his friend Charlie's inability to join him, Hun Ro embarked on the journey alone, seeking solace and serenity amidst the natural beauty that surrounded him. Making his way to the hot springs, Hun Ro relished the tranquility of the landscape, the bubbling waters offering a soothing respite from the cares of the world. Hours passed in blissful solitude until the tranquility was shattered by the frantic cries of a tourist. Rushing to the scene, park guides were met with a chilling discovery: a human leg protruding from the surface of the lake. As they followed the tourist's lead, they made a grim realization: the lifeless body of Hun Ro, floating in the water, his fate sealed by unknown circumstances. Unaccompanied and unidentified, Hun Ro's death remained a mystery in the days that followed. It wasn't until 3 months later that his family received the devastating news, their grief compounded by the uncertainty surrounding his final moments. The discovery of his foot, encased in a shoe, floating in the hot spring, only deepened the mystery surrounding his death. With no witnesses to shed light on the events that transpired, investigators were left grasping for answers, their efforts thwarted by a lack of evidence. While some speculated that he may have accidentally fallen into the spring and been unable to escape, others remained skeptical, questioning the circumstances surrounding his untimely demise. Despite their best efforts, the National Park Service concluded its investigation, opting not to share any additional information with the public. For the grieving family of Hun Ro, the news of his tragic death sent shockwaves through their lives, leaving them grappling with the pain of loss and the unanswered questions that lingered in its wake. With heavy hearts, they traveled to Wyoming to lay their beloved father to rest, honoring his memory with a dignified and heartfelt farewell. As they gathered to mourn and remember the man who had touched their lives in countless ways, they found solace in the cherished memories they shared. Though his death may remain shrouded in mystery, the love and legacy of Hun Ro would endure as a beacon of light in the darkness of their grief. Yellowstone National Park, renowned for its natural beauty and abundant wildlife, attracts visitors from all corners of the United States, especially during long weekends. However, with the influx of newcomers, there comes a risk of ignorance or disregard for the park's rules and guidelines, particularly regarding interactions with wildlife. On Memorial Day of 2022, this risk became a stark reality when a woman in her 20s found herself in a harrowing encounter with a bison. Park authorities have long emphasized the need for visitors to maintain a safe distance from wildlife and to refrain from approaching or attempting to interact with them. Despite these warnings, incidents like the one on Memorial Day underscore the consequences of disregarding these guidelines. The journey of the 25-year-old woman from Grove City, Ohio, to the awe-inspiring landscapes of Yellowstone National Park began with the innocent desire to immerse herself in the beauty of nature. Little did she anticipate that her adventure would take a perilous turn, forever altering the course of her narrative. On a serene Monday morning, as she ventured along the wooden boardwalk near the Black Sand Basin, her path intersected that of a bison, a formidable creature that embodies the untamed spirit of the American West. In a fleeting moment of curiosity, or perhaps obliviousness to the inherent danger, she approached the bison, unknowingly triggering a chain of events that would culminate in a terrifying confrontation. The bison, sensing a potential threat to its territory, reacted with instinctual aggression, unleashing its formidable strength upon the unsuspecting woman. The force of the attack sent her hurtling through the air, a shocking testament to the power and ferocity of the wild animal. The consequences of the encounter were dire, as the woman suffered grievous injuries, including a puncture wound inflicted by the bison's powerful horns. In the aftermath of the attack, first responders swiftly arrived at the scene, their timely intervention proving crucial in stabilizing her condition and ensuring her survival. With the utmost urgency, the woman was transported to Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center, where a team of medical professionals worked tirelessly to provide her with the care and treatment she so desperately needed. As news of the incident spread, conflicting reports regarding the woman's fate emerged, with some prematurely declaring her death. However, it is imperative to exercise caution and refrain from speculation until official confirmation is provided by the relevant authorities. In the meantime, the incident serves as a sobering reminder of the inherent dangers that accompany interactions with wildlife in Yellowstone National Park and other natural environments. While these majestic landscapes offer unparalleled opportunities for exploration and discovery, They also demand a profound respect for the delicate balance between humans and wildlife. As the investigation into the incident continues, it is incumbent upon all visitors to Yellowstone and other wilderness areas to exercise caution, adhere to park regulations, and prioritize their safety and the well-being of the natural world. Only through responsible stewardship and vigilant awareness can we ensure that future generations continue to enjoy the splendor of these cherished landscapes without risking harm or injury.
On June 5, 2019, tragedy struck at 8 p.m. in Kruger National Park, known for its wild beauty. 2-year-old Courtney Nettimine, a little boy filled with laughter and curiosity, found himself in the clutches of a nightmare that would haunt his family and the park for years to come. Courtney's father, Isaiah Nettimine, was a hard-working man, spending his days as a water operator within the park's sprawling expanse. His wife, Sabine, often brought their son to visit him, turning his simple cottage into a haven of love and laughter amidst the rugged terrain. On the day of the tragedy, Isaiah returned home from work, eager to spend time with his family. Ever the adventurous spirit, Courtney followed his father's footsteps, his tiny hand clutching a toy truck as he explored the world around him. As evening descended, Isaiah settled into the routine of family life, unaware of the danger lurking just beyond the safety of his doorstep. Courtney, drawn by the allure of the wilderness, went outside in the night, his innocent curiosity leading him into a world of danger. Suddenly, the evening shattered with the sound of a mother's screams, echoing through the darkness like a cry for help. Isaiah rushed outside, his heart pounding with dread, only to find his worst fears realized. In the grasp of a leopard was his beloved son, his cries for help drowned out by the predator's roar. The leopard bit Courtney's neck and body repeatedly, his cries and screams getting louder as he could feel the pain course through his tiny body. Isaiah acted in sheer terror, his every instinct screaming to protect his child at all costs. With a courage born of desperation, he confronted the leopard, his hands shaking as he fought to free his son from the jaws of death. As the struggle raged on, Sabine joined the fray, her screams blending with Isaiah's as they fought tooth and nail to save their precious son. Isaiah managed to drive the leopard away with a final desperate effort, but the damage had already been done. In the aftermath of the attack, Courtney lay battered and broken, his tiny body bearing the scars of a battle fought and lost. With tears streaming down their faces, Isaiah and Sabine rushed their son to the hospital, praying for a miracle that would never come. Despite the best efforts of the doctors, Courtney succumbed to his injuries, his tiny heart beating its last as his parents looked on in agony. In the wake of his death, Kruger National Park was plunged into mourning, its vast expanse of wilderness overshadowed by the specter of loss and grief. After the brutal attack on Courtney, the rangers and park staff searched for the leopard, where the animal was considered a danger to humans and had to be killed immediately. The park rangers successfully located the leopard and shot it, ending the threat of it harming other people inside the park's premises. As the days turned into weeks, questions lingered like ghosts, haunting the minds of all who sought answers in the wake of Courtney's tragic demise. How had a leopard managed to breach the park's defenses? What measures could be taken to prevent such a tragedy from occurring again? Some speculated that human encroachment into the leopard's natural habitat had emboldened the animal. In contrast, others pointed to the inherent risks of living and working near wild predators. Beyond the tragedy of Courtney's death lies a story of a vibrant young life cut short by the merciless whims of nature. Courtney was not just a victim. He was a beloved son, a cherished family member, and a bright spark in all who knew him. His laughter and smile, once a source of boundless joy, now serve as bittersweet memories cherished by those who loved him most. Renowned Kruger National Park, Roland Kohler, a Swiss tourist, went on a journey filled with anticipation and wonder. It was a crisp morning in November 2019 when Kohler, a devoted anthroposophic physician, and his wife set out on a safari adventure through the sprawling wilderness of the park. Roland Kohler, a man of intellect and curiosity, had dedicated his life to pursuing knowledge and healing. As an anthroposophic physician, he embraced a holistic approach to medicine, viewing each patient as a complex interplay of mind, body, and spirit. His compassionate nature endeared him to all who crossed his path, and his thirst for adventure drew him to the beauty of Kruger National Park. With the sun just beginning to rise above the horizon, the couple navigated the winding roads between the Mopani and Xingwezi camps, their hearts brimming with excitement at the prospect of encountering the park's majestic wildlife. Little did they know, their adventure would soon take a tragic turn. As they rounded a bend in the road, a convoy of minibus taxis thundered past, their drivers seemingly oblivious to the posted speed limit of just 30 mph. Witnesses later recalled the taxis hurtling down the roadway with reckless abandon, leaving a trail of dust and uncertainty in their wake. Amid this chaotic scene, fate intervened most unexpectedly. A giraffe calf, innocent and unsuspecting, wandered onto the roadway, unaware of the impending danger. With a loud screech of tires, tragedy struck as one of the speeding taxis collided with the gentle creature, sending it tumbling onto the path of Kohler's safari vehicle. The impact was catastrophic. The massive 18-foot, 650-pound giraffe crashed down upon the roof of Kohler's camper with bone-crushing force, shattering the serenity of the morning and changing the course of their lives forever. The vehicle was severely damaged, and Kohler suffered from critical injuries while his wife was only mildly injured. A total of 4 people, including Kohler and his wife, were injured in the incident. Amidst the chaos, emergency services raced to the scene, their sirens wailing in a desperate chorus of urgency. Paramedics worked tirelessly to stabilize Kohler, his injuries grave and his future uncertain. With a head injury and a mandibular fracture, his life hung in the balance as he was airlifted to Nelsprout Mediclinic for urgent medical care. However, despite the efforts of medical professionals, Roland Kohler's battle for survival would soon come to a tragic end. Several days later, on November 13, 2019, Kohler succumbed to his injuries at Netcare Millpark Hospital in Johannesburg. His passing shocked the tight-knit community of travelers and adventurers who had crossed paths with him in the expanse of Kruger National Park. In the aftermath of this devastating incident, authorities launched an investigation into the circumstances surrounding Kohler's death. Initially, a case of reckless driving was opened against the minibus driver. His actions were deemed a catalyst for the chain of events that led to the tragedy. However, with Kohler's death, the charge was elevated to culpable homicide. Sandparks, custodians of Kruger National Park, issued a reminder to visitors, urging them to exercise caution and respect the wildlife that called the park home. With speeding fines enforced and surveillance cameras poised to monitor the roads, the message was clear. There are no second chances in the realm of nature. Within the reflections and reminders, questions lingered in the minds of those who bore witness to the tragedy. What if the taxis had adhered to the speed limits? What if the giraffe was a national park? Amidst its sweeping vistas and wild, untamed beauty, 2 women embarked on a journey destined to end in tragedy. Surrounded by the raw power of nature and the unpredictable wilderness, their adventure, which began with excitement and the thrill of exploration, took a sudden, heart-wrenching turn, marking a sobering reminder of the park's formidable and often merciless reality. The first woman, a seasoned employee of Sandparks, had dedicated her life to the protection and preservation of Kruger National Park. Born and raised in a small village on the outskirts of the park, her love for the wild was instilled in her from a young age. As a child, she would spend hours exploring the bushveld, her curiosity piqued by the myriad wonders hidden amidst the thorny underbrush. This deep connection to the land drew her to a career in conservation, where she could work tirelessly to ensure that future generations would inherit a world teeming with life. The second woman, a newcomer to Sandparks and an employee, had dreamed of escaping the concrete jungle in favor of the wide-open spaces of the African bush. This longing for adventure led her to Kruger National Park, where she hoped to immerse herself in the beauty of nature and make a difference in the world. As fate would have it, the paths of these 2 women would converge on a fateful day in the Muiplas section of the park near Mopani Camp. Tasked with a routine mission to harvest Mopani worms, they set out into the wilderness with purpose and determination. Little did they know that their journey would take an unexpected turn, plunging them into a nightmare they would never awaken. It began with a rustle in the underbrush, a faint sound that sent shivers down their spines. Sensing danger, the women paused, their senses on high alert as they scanned the horizon for signs of trouble. And then, like a bolt from the blue, the elephants appeared, their massive forms looming prominently against the backdrop of the savanna. In an instant, chaos erupted as the elephants, agitated by the presence of intruders, charged forth with a primal fury. The women, caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, scrambled for safety, their hearts pounding in their chests like the beat of distant thunder. But for one of them, escape was not to be. With a swift and brutal motion, the elephant's tusk pierced her flesh, carving a path of destruction from her lower back to her chest. The air filled with the sounds of her agony as she fell to the ground, her lifeblood staining the earth beneath her. Beside her, the other woman fought for her life, her body battered and broken by the relentless assault of nature's fury. Guided by armed rangers through the dense, untamed bush of Kruger National Park, a team of paramedics raced against time, navigating the rugged terrain desperately to reach the accident scene. Despite their relentless efforts and the urgency of their mission, they arrived too late for one of the women. She lay motionless on the ground, her life tragically cut short in an instant by powerful forces beyond anyone's control. The somber atmosphere was a stark reminder of nature's unforgiving strength and the fragile line between life and death in the wilderness. How might the outcome have changed if the women had chosen a different route through the park? Could earlier or more effective emergency responses have prevented the tragic end? Were there any overlooked warning signs that could have alerted them to the impending danger? How did their preparations, or lack thereof, impact their fate in the unpredictable wilderness of Kruger National Park? Reflecting on these questions might not only shed light on the circumstances that led to this heartbreak, but also serve as crucial lessons for future adventurers. Understanding these aspects can help emphasize the importance of preparedness, awareness, and swift action in the face of nature's unforeseeable challenges. Christine Susinski had spent decades of her life as an accomplished opera singer, performing in places like Sydney, Venice, and Tokyo. Not only was she a great singer who was sought by many opera houses, Christine was also a multi-instrumentalist, wielding the cello and French horn with impressive skill. However, as she approached her old age, she decided to give it all up and move to Victor, a small town on the southeastern edge of Idaho. There, she learned to fly glider planes and eventually became an instructor, a pursuit that deepened her lifelong love of nature. On June 9, 2018, she embarked on one of her usual trips to the sky, just as she had many times before. Accompanying her in the passenger seat of her non-motorized glider was a friend named David Ross. Just before takeoff, Christine discussed the planned route with her tow-pilot, whose name remains unknown. At the time, nothing seemed out of place, and the wind conditions were identified as calm. They even completed the pre-flight duties for the glider together, ensuring that the trip would proceed without any issues. Eventually, the tow pilot and his plane, along with Christine and her glider, took off from a location in Idaho. They soon reached the foothills of Darby Canyon at 11,500 feet above mean sea level, experiencing little lift at that time. Throughout the entire flight, the tow pilot maintained radio communication with Christine as they worked together to find lift and gain sufficient altitude for the glider's release. When they finally reached an altitude of 13,800, Christine then released the glider, leaving the tow pilot to return to the takeoff airport without incident. Kristen was expected to arrive at the scheduled terminal point within an hour of releasing the glider. However, she neither arrived nor attempted to communicate with the front desk to provide an update on her situation. After an hour past the expected arrival time, the front desk manager tried to contact her via radio but received no response despite multiple attempts. He waited for a while, hoping that contact would eventually be made. When none came, the glider was reported overdue, and an alert notice was issued to the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. But just before a full-scale search and rescue effort was launched, the owner of Teton Aviation Center initiated a private search of his own using a helicopter. Guided by Christine's last known cell phone coordinates, the glider was located wedged between Middle and South Teton, above Iceflow Lake, at an altitude of approximately 10,800 feet. Sadly, it was in a wrecked state and appeared to have collided with a ridge along the side of the mountain. The Teton Aviation Center then notified the park authorities of the wreckage location. A search and rescue team subsequently reached the scene, confirming the fatalities of Christine and her passenger. Utilizing a long-line helicopter operation, the remains were recovered and transported to the coroner's office. When the aviation accident report was eventually released, it provided no clear answers, which only deepened the mysteries surrounding the crash. Investigators found no signs of pre-flight mechanical problems or missing structural components. They also claimed that the glider was airworthy, after ascertaining that it was properly assembled and that its record showed it was properly maintained. It was later speculated that Christine might have passed out during the flight, although it was never confirmed by the investigators. Two friends, Chris Onifer and Steve Romeos, embarked on a backcountry ski trip to Ranger Peak, an 11,355-foot crag located at the northern end of the Teton Range. Both were veteran backcountry skiers. Chris had worked for the Jackson Hole Mountain Resort for years, while Steve was a dedicated blogger who avidly documented his skiing experiences. In the early hours of that Wednesday morning, the two set out on their journey and were expected back at night that same day. However, the two failed to turn up and were presumed to be missing after Chris did not fulfill his plan to pick up his father from Jackson Airport that evening. With Chris and Steve also failing to make any contact with the dispatch center, it became increasingly apparent that something was wrong beyond them just being missing. As midnight approached that same day, park rangers decided to launch a rescue mission. They began by sweeping trailheads popular among backcountry skiers in the park's South District before expanding their efforts to the North District as more information became available. Chris's vehicle was then discovered near the Coulter Bay Swim Beach just after 12:30 a.m. on Thursday the following day. However, neither Chris nor Steve were found inside the vehicle. Despite a search throughout the night, there were no signs of their whereabouts. As dawn approached on the following morning, a search and rescue contract helicopter was deployed to ramp up the efforts to locate the missing skiers. Barely hours into the resumption of the search, two rangers aboard the rescue helicopter spotted an avalanche on a ridge that shapes the northern side of Waterfalls Canyon. Recognizing this as a potential area where Chris and Steve may have become trapped, the helicopter conducted a thorough search of the avalanche debris, using a transceiver suspended below to detect any signals from avalanche beacons. Before long, the transceiver registered 2 beacon hits, suggesting the presence of potentially human beings buried beneath the snow and debris. With the location now determined, a team of 7 rangers was flown back to commence a thorough probe search of the debris. Before noon that day, the lifeless bodies of Chris and Steve were discovered in a couloir on a ridge that comprises the north wall of Waterfalls Canyon. Steve was found approximately 150 feet from the toe of the avalanche, while Chris was located about 1,500 feet above Steve. Their bodies were then carefully removed from a relatively shallow depth within the debris. Initially, they were transported by helicopter to an accessible location, and then transferred by snowmobile to meet the coroner. Investigations into their tragic demise revealed that Chris and Steve were likely ascending with skins on their skis when a sizable soft slab avalanche was triggered, propelling them over 2,000 feet down the couloir. It was further determined that the cause of death was blunt force trauma, indicating that they succumbed instantly upon being struck by the avalanche. In the wake of the skiers' deaths, Steve's family decided to relaunch his blog, which had attracted thousands of visitors before the tragic incident. They meticulously cataloged the hundreds of routes he had documented during his lifetime. These routes included descents in the Tetons, Wind River Mountains, Eastern Sierras, and various locations around the world, such as Antarctica, Canada, Italy, Mexico, New Zealand, and South America. Chris was also fondly remembered as a dedicated professional who positively impacted the lives of many in the park. Supposed to be a fun girls' trip in the heart of nature, turned into an absolute nightmare for 42-year-old Carol Sund, her 15-year-old daughter Julie, and 16-year-old Silvina Peloso. It was on February 12, 1999, that the 3 women left for a 4-day vacation near Yosemite National Park. Carol, Julie, and Silvina left their home in Eureka, California, unafraid and oblivious to what was to come. We can only guess at the excitement the 3 women must have felt as they boarded their flight to San Francisco. Silvina was an exchange student from Argentina. She and Julie had become friends, and the Suns were very happy to host her. Once they landed, Carol rented a red 1999 Pontiac Grand Prix. They had a lot to do and see, and only 4 days before they were supposed to meet Jens, Carol's husband, back at the San Francisco airport and accompany him on a business trip to Arizona. The women's first stop was Stockton, California. There, Julie took part in a cheerleading contest. After Julie's contest, the 3 women hit the road again. They arrived in El Portal, California on February 14th. They planned to stay there for a few days to explore Yosemite National Park. They got a room at Cedar Lodge, a resort located only 8 miles away from the park's entrance. The women spent the following day, February 15th, hiking on one of the park's many trails. It was there in the middle of nature that Carol, Julie, and Sylvina were safest. Returning to Cedar Lodge for the night turned out to be an awful, unexpected mistake. The women left the park at some point during the evening. They were tired and wanted to unwind before getting some sleep. They had to return the rented car the next day and then meet Jens, Carol's husband, at the San Francisco airport. But in the hands of destiny, their plans were as good as nothing. Once they got back to Cedar Lodge, the group asked for some videos from the lodge's service desk. It was the last time anyone ever saw them alive. What transpired was a horrendous crime that shook America and marred national park history. On February 16th, Jens Sund was astounded to see that Carol and the girls didn't show up at the airport the way they had agreed. Jens was worried enough to contact the police. Then the facts got muddier. It seemed that checkout had been made in advance. The keys were left inside the room and nothing was amiss. But there was no trace of the women, nor of the car Carol had rented. To make matters worse, the rental car company confirmed Carol had never returned the Pontiac. Local police, rangers, volunteers, family, and friends all came together to comb through the park in a desperate attempt to find the women. 2 weeks later, Carol's wallet inexplicably turned up in Modesto intact. Were they even alive? At this point, the situation looked dire. On March 18, 1999, Jens Sund's worst fears became reality. The red 1999 Pontiac was found, tucked away off Highway 108, in the Stanislaus Forest region, a region that locals used as a dumping ground. The car was burned out. Inside the car, authorities made a gruesome discovery: 2 charred bodies which were later identified as Carol Sund and Sylvina Peloso. At this point, the FBI got involved. A week later, authorities received a note indicating the location of Julie's body. "We had fun with this one," the note cruelly said. Julie Sund's body was discovered on March 25th near Lake Pedro, in Tuolumne County. The body was severely decomposed, but the cause of death was clear. Julie's throat had been slashed. It took another crime for the killer to be caught. Joey Ruth Armstrong was gruesomely murdered near her cabin. The day before, some witnesses had spotted a blue car parked near the woman's cabin. Police used this information to find Joey's killer, and were stunned to find that all clues pointed to Carrie Stainer, a 37-year-old handyman at the Cedar Lodge Motel, who they had previously interviewed in connection to the Sund and Palazzo murders. This time, Stainer confessed. On the evening of February 15th, he held Carol, Julie, and Sylvina at gunpoint. He promised he wouldn't hurt them if only they cooperated. He lied. He bound and gagged the women, strangled and shot Carol, then sexually assaulted and killed Sylvina Peloso, too. He then brought Julie to the lake, where he sexually assaulted her and then cut her throat. Although Stainer pleaded not guilty to the murders of the Sunds and Peloso, claiming insanity, the judge decided to sentence him to death 3 times, once for each murder. Carrie Stainer is now 62 years old and still alive. One thing and one thing only Tomer Frankfurter wanted as he climbed over the cliff edge: some really cool photos of his trip. He wasn't afraid. After all, Frankfurter knew he wouldn't be the first tourist to make risky decisions for an unforgettable memory. And he was young, barely 18 years old. At that age, everything seems possible. Everything except for the worst. It was September 4th, 2018, and Tomer Frankfurter was visiting Yosemite National Park. The young man was on a 2-month tour of the U.S., after which he had to return to his home in Israel to start his mandatory service in the Israeli army. Frankfurter spent his tour with a family friend from Fresno, California. Frankfurter and his friend arrived at Yosemite together. The day was warm and sunny. Frankfurter chose to follow the Mist Trail, Yosemite's signature hike. With awe-inspiring views scattered all along it, the Mist Trail is extremely popular with tourists. As such, it isn't exactly a lonely hike, but crowds thin out the closer you get to a truly spectacular place, the top of the Nevada Fall, a 594-foot-high waterfall on the Merced River. The more adventurous and fit tourists opt to hike the entirety of the Mist Trail in order to reach the top of the fall. On September 4th, 2018, 18-year-old Tomer Frankfurter was one of them. At some point during the hike, Frankfurter and his friend got separated. But since the mist trail is so popular, it wasn't long until Frankfurter found a friendly group of tourists from Israel, Germany, and other countries, and decided to join them for the rest of the day. The trail became increasingly strenuous as they got closer to the top of Nevada Fall, but the effort was more than worth it. Once they got on top of the fall, the group decided it was time to eat lunch, with a view. The place was breathtaking, with the thunderous roar of the water underlying the beauty of the valley below. As they prepared to head back, Tomer Frankfurter had a last-minute idea. He told his new friends he wanted to try and recreate a photo that got a lot of traction on social media. In it, a tourist visiting Telegraph Rock near Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, hanged from a rock outcropping as if the individual was thousands of feet above the ground. What Frankfurter didn't realize, though, was that the photo was merely an optical illusion, with the rock hanging just 3 feet above a trail below. Frankfurter tossed his backpack aside and handed his smartphone to a woman in the group, asking her to take some photos. Others in the group tried to intervene, arguing it was too dangerous, but Frankfurter was determined. He wanted those photos. Ignoring the others, the 18-year-old began climbing over the cliff edge and then dangled himself above the falls. The woman took several photos of Frankfurter. Then came a sudden plea for help. At first, some of the hikers thought the teenager was joking. But then they saw it. His arms were shaking, glistening with sweat. He was struggling to hold on. Several members of the group rushed to his aid, but trying to pull him back onto the trail turned impossible. The would-be saviors couldn't get a good grip of Frankfurter's sweaty arms, and there wasn't any equipment that could help them pull him. It was over in an instant. He slipped from their grasp. Then Tomer Frankfurter fell to his death, some 600 feet below, near the Merced River. He died on impact, becoming one of at least 300 people who died falling from a great height in Yosemite National Park. It was more than 100 years ago when the final 400-foot ascent of Half Dome, the iconic rock formation in Yosemite National Park, was fitted with cables. Standing at 8,800 feet above sea level, Half Dome has fascinated nature lovers and hikers for the longest time, despite the trickier parts of the hike. The reward, most people say, it's worth the effort. This was probably what Danielle Burnett believed, too. The 29-year-old woman loved nature and was particularly fond of hikes, especially when they provided wonderful views. And what better place for a striking view than Yosemite? Burnett, who was originally from Lake Havasu City, Arizona, and worked as a social media manager at Havasu Springs Resort in Parker, Arizona, arrived at the park on September 5, 2019. She had previously gotten a lottery-distributed permit to climb to the top of Half Dome, a necessity for all those who wish to venture on the hike. The Half Dome Trail traverses some 17 miles and gains about 4,800 feet in elevation. In other words, it's not a walk in the park. In fact, the last portion of the trail is particularly strenuous. That's why it was fitted with cables back in 1919. Hikers are advised to be cautious and avoid the trail if they're unprepared or out of shape. Even the most experienced hikers could face problems out there, with altitude sickness and changing weather being possible obstacles. But this wasn't Danielle Burnett's first time out on a hike. She was all right for the most part of the hike, that is, until she reached the strenuous and famous cable route. Sean Slimp and his group were also on the cable route when they heard a commotion above. When he looked up, Slimp saw Danielle Burnett struggling. A light sprinkle had started, which seemed to terrify Burnett. In her panic, Burnett decided getting to the top wasn't worth it. She needed to turn around even though her group continued on. Slimp watched as Burnett's shoes slipped on the rock. Then the woman fell hard. In an instant, she lost her grip on the cable and started sliding down. Slimp and one of his friends sprang into action, trying to catch Burnett. It was of no use. She was simply too far from their reach. Slimp watched in horror as Danielle Burnett slipped past. Her screams pierced the air. Then she tumbled more than 500 feet down the rocky surface. The rest of the hikers had to be evacuated so a helicopter could fly in. When park rangers arrived on the scene, Danielle Burnett was already dead. Her family was devastated. Her sister, Nicole Burnett, posted a tribute on Facebook, asking people to allow her family to grieve in privacy. It's with a broken heart to inform you all that our beautiful Danielle left us yesterday doing something she loved so much, Nicole's post also said. According to the Mercury News, Danielle Burnett was at least the 12th person since 1995 whose life was claimed by Half Dome in Yosemite National Park.
2015, a group of 7 hikers set out to explore Keyhole Canyon in Zion National Park, which by the usual estimates should take anywhere from 1 to 4 hours. The group consisted of adults between 40 and 50 years of age, most of whom were California residents. According to reports, their names were Mark McKenzie, Linda Arthur, her husband Steve, Gary Favela, Muku Reynolds, Robin Broom, and Don Teichner. Some of them had taken a canyoneering skills course prior to the hike, as they were newbies to the hobby. Others knew each other through a hiking club in Valencia, California. Together, they weren't the best team, but they had enough experience to get them through the hike on any typical day. However, that seemingly ordinary day in September held something else in stock for the hikers. Just 2 hours past noon, authorities were forced to shut down all the canyons in the vicinity following an unforeseen storm that triggered flash floods. Despite park rangers routinely cautioning hikers about the dangers of floods during monsoon season, this group had defiantly chosen to venture into the canyon. Although the reason behind their decision remains unclear, it might have stemmed from the fact that the Keyhole Canyon permits were coveted by many, as only 80 visitors are allowed to visit it per day. When the storm hit, the hikers were unaware of the flash flooding it had caused. This is because Keystone Canyon is predominantly desert terrain, and there was no means of reaching them in time to warn them ahead. Unfortunately, they ended up getting caught in an unexpected deluge of floodwaters while they were descending the canyon. It likely rushed over their heads in moments and carried them miles downstream to their watery demise. Perhaps the group's dire situation might never have been known if not for 3 other hikers who had crossed paths with them earlier during their own hike. At this chance encounter, they helped the group capture a photograph of themselves that would tragically mark the final image they would ever share. The 3 hikers, who had narrowly escaped being met by the flash floods, alerted the park rangers about the 7 hikers when they arrived back at base. With this crucial information at hand, the rangers moved to locate the hikers' vehicles to confirm if they were able to make it back. However, when the rangers arrived at their location, their owners were nowhere in sight. Typically, a search and rescue operation would have been mobilized immediately to locate the missing hikers. However, initiating one at the time was deemed too dangerous due to the storm. Hours later, search and rescue teams aided by specially trained dogs combed through several miles of the area. They searched for any sign of the hikers, be it their remains or any indications that one of them had managed to survive the ordeal. The former ended up being the case. Across 1 week, the bodies of each of the 7 hikers popped up in different locations within the canyon, confirming that the flash flood had indeed claimed their lives. The news devastated their families as well as local hiking communities, which some of them belonged to. Several months later, a memorial bench was erected at Topanga State Park to honor the memory of the hikers who lost their lives in the tragic incident. August 2022, Jatal Agnahatri decided to visit Zion National Park with 2 of her friends for a hiking trip in the Narrows. She loved spending her time outdoors, but could not do it frequently due to her hectic life as a promising young PhD researcher at the University of Arizona Department of Hydrology and Atmospheric Sciences. All things considered, she saw the hiking trip as a time to relax from the stress of academia before starting the fall semester at the University of Arizona. However, just as Jatal and her friends were gearing up to start their hike, Zion Park officials issued several flash flood warnings. Given that hiking through the Narrows involved wading through the virgin riverbed at certain points, the prospect of being caught in the river during a flash flood was potentially life-threatening. Regardless, Jatal decided to go on the hike as planned. Meanwhile, her friends chose the wiser option of staying back, and they all planned to meet up at the visitor center's parking lot later in the evening. During the hike, the flash flood struck suddenly, turning the dry washes and smooth rock surfaces of the Narrows into a dangerous river of fast-moving water and debris in just minutes. Sadly, Jital, who reportedly couldn't swim, was swept away by the flood, along with a group of other hikers. Shortly after the flash flood, park rangers were informed about hikers being swept away. They promptly organized a rescue team to assist them. One injured hiker was discovered downstream, several hundred yards away on the Virgin River, and was immediately transported to the hospital. Several other hikers found themselves stranded on elevated ground surrounded by water, but were safely escorted to dry land once the water levels went back. The rangers then interviewed the park visitors, asking if anyone was missing from their group. When no one offered information about a missing person, they believed everyone had been located. However, hours later, Jital was reported missing, likely by her friends, when she failed to appear. This triggered an immediate search effort involving a team of swiftwater-trained rescuers, search dogs, and over 170 emergency responders. On the first day of the search, Jital remained unaccounted for. As the search efforts continued, Jital's family, who had traveled to assist in the search, anxiously awaited any updates regarding her whereabouts. Her brother even spoke with news outlets, expressing his shock at the suddenness of the flash floods and lamenting the family's anguish over not knowing what Jital was experiencing. On that same day, video footage circulated by a news outlet showed at least 2 individuals desperately clinging to broken-off parts of fallen trees as the flash flood carried them away. One of the individuals looked like Jital, although the video could not 100% confirm this. When Jital's brother was interviewed about it, he expressed deep concern that the chilling footage may have captured his sister's final moments. The search continued into the second day, with rescue officers carefully going through the areas where Jital might have been swept away by the flood. They focused their efforts on investigating the fast-flowing and deep sections of the river, as well as areas with dense vegetation and log jams. However, it wasn't until the 4th day of the search that Jital was finally discovered. She was found 6 miles south of the Narrows, already deceased, a grim reality later confirmed by a medical examiner. In the wake of Jital's passing, an outpouring of tributes flooded in to honor her memory. Her university described her as gracious, humble, and dedicated, while a close friend fondly remembered her as the most wonderful person and praised her kindness towards everyone. A funeral service was later held for Jital on Thursday, August 25, 2022, at Metcalf Mortuary in St. George, Utah.
Klemenok stood on the banks of a rushing river in Yosemite National Park. The date was the 2nd of July in 2023, and the air hung heavy with the oppressive heat of a humid summer day. However, the group pressed on with their hike towards Chilnualna Falls Creek. Hayden, born on November 11, 1998 in Santa Rosa, California, was never one to shy away from challenges. From his early years, he had been the sporty and adventurous kid, his enthusiasm for fitness evident in his achievements, particularly in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. A proud blue belt holder, Hayden had participated in numerous competitions, drawn to the mental focus and competitiveness of the sport. His childhood also saw him immersed in baseball, playing in Petaluma Valley Little League and various all-star and travel ball teams. When his group of friends proposed a hiking trip to Yosemite, Hayden jumped at the opportunity without a second thought. He cleared his schedule and eagerly packed his bags, ready for the adventure that awaited them. The group embarked on their journey towards the upper Chilnualna Falls Creek, following a trail famous for its 2 waterfalls that spanned more than 12 kilometers, 7.456 miles. Yosemite, known for its abundant snowfall during winter, contributed to a challenging environment with a high river flow. The initial hours of the hike were joyous, filled with laughter and playful banter. The camaraderie fueled their determination as they pushed through the trail. However, as the day wore on, the heat and humidity began to take their toll, prompting Hayden to suggest a break to freshen up. Around 2 p.m., as they passed the trail beside the river, the group decided to deviate and cool off in the inviting waters. Standing on the riverbanks, they watched the rushing water, enticed by the idea of a refreshing break. Hayden, feeling the need to cool down further, leaned down to wash his face. What started as a simple act of refreshment took a tragic turn. A sudden surge of water swept through the river, catching Hayden off guard. He lost his balance and was swiftly carried away by the roaring waters. Submerged and disoriented, he struggled against the powerful current. A loud splash alerted his friends, who turned to see Hayden's last moments beside the river. However, he had disappeared, leaving only the relentless flow of the river. Frantically searching, his friends saw a figure in the water. Hayden, desperately trying to stay afloat, clinging to anything that could save him. The group, torn between the instinct to save their friend and the realization of the danger, hesitated. The currents were too strong, and jumping into the river without proper gear would be perilous. With heavy hearts, they contacted Park Emergency Services, initiating a desperate plea for help. Yosemite National Park declared Hayden missing on July 5, 2023, triggering an immediate response. His parents, Kevin and Michelle, rushed to Yosemite, their hearts gripped by fear and hope. It took until July 9, 2023 to locate Hayden's lifeless body near Chilnwalna Creek. The challenging location required an additional 24 hours to retrieve his remains, confirming the devastating reality on July 10, 2023. The tragedy echoed through Hayden's family and friends, leaving them in the throes of grief. Yosemite's official website issued a somber warning about the dangers of swift, cold rivers, urging visitors to stay away from wet rocks. To support Hayden's family financially, a GoFundMe page was established, a testament to the community's shared sorrow. Hayden, remembered for his kind nature, dedication, and willingness to help, became the focal point of a memorial fund supporting a promising athlete in the Casa Grande High School baseball program. On July 29, 2023, a celebration of life was held at the Marine Country Club, gathering family, friends, and those touched by Hayden's presence. Despite the sorrow, his life was celebrated for its positive qualities, achievements, and the profound impact he had on those around him. Hayden's passing, tragic as it was, serves as a reminder of the inherent dangers even in the most enchanting natural environments. Though grief lingers, his memory lives on through the stories shared by those who knew and loved him, a testament to a life well lived despite its premature end. Shadows of mystery loom over the tale of Sandra Johnson Hughes, a woman who embarked on a solo journey into the heart of the Sierra National Forest. The enigma began on June 26, 2020, when Sandra, a lover of the outdoors and a self-proclaimed survivalist, shared her plans with her family. The chaos of the world, exacerbated by the ongoing pandemic, led her to leave her Hawaiian home and relocate to California, seeking solace amidst the mainland's vast landscapes. Aged 53, Sandra's passion for camping, hiking, and exploration defined her essence. Her deep connection with nature drove her towards the Sierra National Forest, where she envisioned a solo camping and hiking escapade, possibly reaching the iconic Yosemite. Little did she know that this journey would become a perplexing enigma, shrouded in the mysteries of the wilderness. As Sandra traversed towards the Sierra National Forest over the 4th of July weekend in 2020, her destination was the Johnson's Meadow area, a tranquil spot about 10 miles, 16.09 kilometers, south of Yosemite. The initial days of her expedition unfolded with routine casualness. But on the 4th of July, hikers saw Sandra walking barefoot with a bruise on her face. Concerned, the hikers approached Sandra and checked if she needed any medical assistance, to which she declined. However, as the days passed, a sinister silence enveloped Sandra's existence. All forms of communication ceased, posing a major red flag for relatives of individuals who engage in wilderness activities. The casual getaway gave way to an unsettling absence, prompting concern and raising questions about the fate of the seasoned outdoorswoman. The turning point arrived on July 5, 2020, when officials from the Sierra National Forest stumbled upon Sandra's campsite. What they discovered was far from the expected orderliness that defined Sandra's character. The campsite was in a state of total disarray, with personal belongings and documents scattered haphazardly, a stark departure from Sandra's meticulous nature. The disarray raised more questions than answers, turning the search for Sandra into a desperate quest for truth. The unraveling mystery deepened on July 6, 2020, when Sandra's silver sub was discovered in Chiquito Creek, north of her campsite. The vehicle bore the marks of a crash at a speed of less than 20 miles per hour, a puzzling scenario in the vast wilderness. Speculations arose. Had Sandra taken evasive action, startled by something unknown, or was there a more ominous force at play? Further perplexity awaited on July 12, 2020, when Sandra's sleeping bag was found 2.5 miles, 4.02 kilometers, north of her abandoned vehicle just inside the border of Yosemite National Park. The eerie trail of clues unfolded against the backdrop of the dense and unforgiving landscape, adding layers to the mystery that enveloped Sandra's disappearance. The timeline of uncertainties continued to unfold. On August 9, 2020, 2 hunters reported a sighting of Sandra near Portuguese Creek. The description offered a haunting glimpse. Sandra appeared thinner than depicted in missing person posters, clad in overalls and a floral shirt. She leaned against a tree, sipping water, displaying no signs of distress. This sighting marked the last confirmed encounter with Sandra, leaving search parties confounded. The case remained dormant until July 21, 2021, when another chapter of the enigma unfolded. The Gorba family on a trip to Shutai Peak experienced a surreal encounter involving their 3-year-old Caden. During a lunch stop, Caden spoke of a woman lying face down in a meadow, legs straight up, unable to speak or move. The family and subsequent searches by the Madera County Sheriff's Office revealed nothing tangible, adding another layer of mystique to Sandra's tale. As of the video's production, no signs of Sandra, whether alive or otherwise, have emerged. The woods of Yosemite National Park guard the secrets of her fate, leaving the narrative suspended in uncertainty. The echoes of Caden's words reverberate, suggesting a spectral connection to Sandra within the mystical grounds. The narrative weaves a series of unanswered questions, each detail adding to the enigma. Sandra Johnson Hughes, once a vibrant explorer of nature, now exists in the realm of shadows and speculation. The Sierra National Forest, with its vast expanse and hidden intricacies, conceals the truth behind her disappearance, casting an air of mystery over the fate of a woman lost in the wilderness. Brandon Mendez gazed at the shimmering waters of Lake Yosemite on the 4th of July in 2023. The lake, as usual during this time of the year, was bustling with people enjoying the holiday festivities. Groups of tourists and families gathered along the expansive lakeside to celebrate Independence Day, and Brandon's family was no exception. Amidst the lively atmosphere, Brandon's family lounged near the pier, sharing the lakeside with other revelers. Brandon, known for his perpetual smile and joyful demeanor, soaked in the festive ambiance. The man-made lake, spanning 500 acres with an average depth of 16 meters, 53 feet, offered a plethora of recreational activities. Boating enthusiasts reveled in the opportunity to jet ski, water ski, and kayak on the lake's expansive surface. However, the most common sight was the multitude of people swimming in the cold, murky waters. Despite the absence of a lifeguard, swimming was permitted, and individuals did so at their own risk. Excitement brimmed in Brandon as he observed others enjoying the refreshing waters. Standing near the edge of the platform, he prepared for a plunge into the lake. His family and fellow lakegoers were in close proximity, some noticing his intent to join the swimmers. Unperturbed, they paid little attention, assuming Brandon was merely embracing the spirit of the holiday. With a resounding splash, Brandon leaped into the cold embrace of Lake Yosemite. Seconds turned into minutes, and anticipation shifted to concern as Brandon failed to resurface. Panic set in among his family when realization struck that he was missing. Frantically, they scoured the lakeside but found no trace of him. At 4:17 p.m., with growing desperation, Brandon's family alerted Merced County Sheriff's deputies about his disappearance. They disclosed that Brandon was last seen swimming near the pier of the man-made reservoir. Law enforcement officers launched an extensive search, clinging to the hope of finding Brandon alive despite the ominous circumstances. The lake's murky waters, stirred by the earlier influx of swimmers, hindered visibility. The cold weather added an additional layer of challenge to the search efforts. Despite their best attempts, deputies could not locate Brandon. The sheriff's dive team was summoned to the lake, and after several hours of painstaking exploration, they discovered the lifeless body of the teen. At 9:35 p.m., Brandon Mendez was officially pronounced dead. The aftermath of the tragic incident cast a somber shadow over the community. 2 days later, loved ones gathered at McNamara Park in Merced for a candlelight vigil in Brandon's memory. His teammates on the Merced United soccer team lamented the loss of a promising young player, robbed of the opportunity to participate in an upcoming tournament. The lake, initially a place of celebration, had become a silent witness to the untimely end of a vibrant young life. The 4th of July, meant for joy and festivities, had turned into a day marked by grief and reflection for Brandon Mendez and the community that mourned his loss.
The family lived in a quaint suburban neighborhood, seemingly idyllic on the surface, but harboring a turbulent storm within their own home. Beth Morris, the matriarch, had long grappled with the fiery temper of her youngest daughter, Catherine. If only she had known the consequences of indulging Catherine's fiery nature from a young age, perhaps things would have turned out differently. As the youngest sibling, Catherine's fiery temper was apparent from the moment she entered the world. Her older brother, Aaron, bore witness to her tumultuous childhood, often finding himself caught in the crossfire of her outbursts. One particular incident stood out in his memory, etched into his mind like a scar. It was the day their father Ross decided to shave off his beard, a decision that would unknowingly unleash Catherine's wrath upon the unsuspecting family. At just 5 years old, Catherine could not comprehend the significance of her father's grooming choice. To her, it was a betrayal of the familiar, a disruption of the status quo she had grown accustomed to. With tears streaming down her face, she unleashed her signature hot temper upon her father, refusing to accept the unfamiliar face that stared back at her. In her young mind, Ross had committed an unforgivable sin, and she was having none of it. As Catherine grew older, her fiery temper only intensified, becoming a source of constant tension within the Griffin household. Arguments erupted like wildfire, leaving emotional scars that lingered long after the flames had died down. Beth Morris, burdened by guilt and regret, wished she had taken a firmer stance with Catherine from the very beginning. An incident occurred when she was 38 years old. Catherine always sought solace from her demanding work as a construction worker by visiting Yellowstone National Park with her travel companion, McCollum, on weekends. However, an argument escalated due to Catherine's fiery temper, leading to a tragic outcome. In the heat of the moment, Catherine impulsively retrieved a gun, and despite it being a verbal dispute, ended her own life. The open windows of McCollum's truck allowed the sound of the gunshot to reverberate through the park, causing panic among staff and tourists alike. The sudden eruption of chaos shattered the tranquility of the park as people fled in fear for their safety. McCollum, reeling from shock and disbelief, emerged from the truck and sank to the ground, overcome by the weight of the tragic events unfolding before him. It wasn't long before park authorities arrived on the scene, drawn by the commotion and the trail of despair left in its wake. As they approached the truck, they discovered Catherine's lifeless body, blood staining the seat beside her. Amid the chaos, McCollum found himself thrust into the spotlight, facing charges of drug possession and traffic violations in connection with Catherine's death. As authorities worked to piece together the events leading up to the tragic incident, Beth Ross, Catherine's mother, and Aaron, her brother, were notified of the incident, their grief palpable as they struggled to come to terms with the sudden and senseless loss. For Beth, the memories of Catherine as a child, the moments of tenderness and affection, clashed with the harsh reality of her daughter's untimely demise. Despite their grief, the family confirmed Catherine's relationship with McCollum, a detail that authorities chose not to disclose publicly. As Beth reflected on Catherine's upbringing, she recalled moments of comfort and solace, when Catherine would seek refuge in her mother's embrace, seeking reassurance and love. It was a stark contrast to the fiery temper that had defined Catherine's adult life, a reminder of the complexity of the human spirit and the struggles that lay beneath the surface. Aaron, Catherine's brother, also struggled to find solace in memories of happier times, knowing that dwelling in the past would only serve to deepen his sorrow. For him, moving forward meant confronting the painful reality of Catherine's death head-on, a daunting task that seemed insurmountable in the wake of such tragedy. Neil and his half-brother's relationship was like no other. Mark was 67, while his half-brother, Kim Crumbo, was 74 years old. Despite their 7-year age gap, they still enjoyed the best of their time together. Both of them worked as conservationists, and during their free time, they explored nature. Both men had dedicated their lives to the preservation of the natural world, working tirelessly to protect and conserve the pristine landscapes they held dear. Together, they embarked on countless adventures, exploring the wilderness and immersing themselves in the beauty of the great outdoors. For O'Neill and Crumbo, each expedition was more than just a journey into the unknown. It was an opportunity to deepen their understanding of the intricate workings of nature and to marvel at the wonders of the world around them. With each step they took and each discovery they made, they grew closer as brothers and as comrades in arms in the fight to safeguard our planet's precious resources. On one fateful day, O'Neill and Crumbo set out on a deep nature exploration, their sights set on Shoshone Lake in Wyoming. Armed with nothing but their passion for conservation and a thirst for adventure, they embarked on a 4-night journey into the heart of the backcountry, eager to immerse themselves in the untamed beauty of the wilderness. After setting up camp beside the tranquil shores of the lake, the brothers in spirit settled in for the night, their hearts filled with anticipation for the adventures that lay ahead. As they drifted off to sleep beneath the star-studded sky, they dreamed of the wonders they would encounter in the days to come. When morning dawned and the first rays of sunlight pierced the horizon, they set out for their adventure. But during this adventure, something tragic occurs. The tranquility of Shoshone Lake was shattered by the shocking discovery made by a group of tourists who had ventured into the backcountry for a day of exploration. As they wandered through the bush near the water's edge, their conversation punctuated the stillness of the wilderness, their footsteps rustling through the undergrowth as they made their way along the trail. Suddenly, their progress was halted by the abrupt cessation of movement from the tourist at the head of the line. As his companions clustered around him, curiosity piqued. Their eyes were drawn to the lifeless form of Mark O'Neill, lying near the shore, his body still and silent amidst the beauty of the natural landscape. Shock and disbelief rippled through the group as they grappled with the grim reality of what lay before them. With level-headed maturity, they quickly sprang into action, contacting emergency services and alerting authorities to the tragic discovery they had made. O'Neill's body was swiftly transported to the hospital, where an autopsy revealed the cause of his death to be hypothermia, a chilling reminder of the unforgiving power of nature and the dangers that lurk within its embrace. As news of O'Neill's tragic fate spread, concern mounted for the whereabouts of his brother, Kim Crumbo, who had embarked on the backcountry excursion with him. Relatives grew increasingly anxious when the brothers failed to return from their expected 4-night trip, prompting them to report them as overdue to park authorities. The search for Crumbo was launched with renewed urgency, as teams scoured the area near Shoshone Lake on foot, by boat, and with the assistance of search dogs and helicopters. Every effort was made to locate him, with sonar equipment deployed to search for clues beneath the surface of the water. Despite the exhaustive efforts of search and rescue teams, Crumbo remained elusive, his whereabouts shrouded in mystery as the investigation into his disappearance continued. As days turned into weeks, hope dwindled that he would be found alive, leaving loved ones to grapple with the agonizing uncertainty of his fate. Yet amidst the despair and heartache, there remained a glimmer of optimism, a steadfast belief that Crumbo's resilience and survival instincts would see him through even the darkest of times. With each passing day, the search continued, fueled by the unwavering determination to bring him home and provide closure for his grieving family. As the incident remained under investigation, the search for Crumbo persisted, with volunteers and authorities alike refusing to give up hope of finding him alive. Though the passage of time brought with it challenges and uncertainties, the resolve to reunite Crumbo with his loved ones remained unwavering, a beacon of hope in the face of overwhelming adversity. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the search for Kim Crumbo continued, a testament to the enduring power of love, hope, and the unbreakable bond between two brothers, united by a shared passion for conservation and a love of the great outdoors.